I'm Nimisha Doongarwal and I do mixed media portraiture, predominantly focusing on social issues and pretty much focusing on immigrant and women issues in our social society. I am from India originally and I was born in a very historical town of Gwalior. It is full of forts and it has a lot of art, which is olden art from pre-British time. And I was super influenced by mom. She was an artist growing up. I used to copy her paintings, and that is how I actually got into art. Uh, Pretty much portraiture. She actually did portraiture, but it was very different from what I do. But that was my inspiration, and that is the reason I'm an artist today. In 2010 is when I finished my master's, and I actually started working as an engineer. My first jobs were coding. I started coding, and by 2011, I kind of felt I literally hated my job because I wasn't passionate about it. I did it. I was still good at it, but I just couldn't find what I was missing in life. And that's when I remembered the passion I had when I used to paint a lot when I was a kid. And I just started, like, I literally started back with painting a boat at sunset. I remember that painting and I still have that, but it was just, that old, like, very basic standard paintings. And I kept doing that since 2011. But in 2014, or 2013, one of my managers at that time, um, I always used to tell him I paint and I loved painting. And he just asked me this question of, um, what is your favorite style of painting and who is your favorite artist? And I literally didn't know what to say. Only name I knew was Picasso. Even though I painted so much by then, I didn't had any idea about style, and the only style I knew was Impressionism, which didn't make sense with Picasso and Impressionism. But these were the only words I remembered or I knew at that point, and I felt so stupid because I felt like I called myself an artist, and I didn't know anything. I didn't know what art was. I was just a craftsman at that point. So I started to learn art. I went to Stanford continuing studies in 2014 is when or 13 is when I started that. I took like 3 courses or something. And that's when I realized I actually wanted to learn about art, not just be a painter, be a creator. So I enrolled into Academy of Arts for proper masters in fine arts. And that's when I say my art journey started. But that one person asking me that question was really the start of my journey. Like that's what I always feel that was the start. But yeah, since then I've been painting. I still go to school. It's part-time. I was a traditional painter. I started with oil painting. The Identity series that started as a acrylic oil painting with some collages in initial years when I actually just was conceptualizing the idea. And if you look at my older pieces on my website, you'll see those paintings. But one off day, I felt like painting for me was just fulfilling me as an artist, because I felt like if you could paint, you are a real artist. But then it wasn't really gelling too well with what I was doing and the concept I was trying to bring out, because there was still that mismatch of like, why am I painting? Like, if someone asks me, why am I painting? What does painting do in order to get my idea out? I didn't have enough answer for that. So at that point, I was also reading a lot of other artists who were doing the similar work, and one thing came across was collaging. And instantly I felt that collaging gelled in so well with what I wanted to do, because I was just showing up layers of people, layers of identities, and what better can I used to show that layers. Collaging was like instantly the medium I would be like, yeah, this is exactly what would gel in with the concept I was trying to get. So that's when I just stuck with collaging, because I could get layers. I was free and I wanted to bring that spontaneousness and freeness into my work, and being able to add these layers with the growth of people and show the link between how I feel and I see people as to what my work shows people as. And that's the only reason I actually lean towards collaging, and that's why it is my chosen medium for the work. It is from the lens of colonization from then to now. One of the most important reasons I chose colonization was my own identity and my own history. but it is also the era which I feel the real immigration started, and when people started moving, the motion was real at that point. uh, Colonial countries were sending people off to different, like Indian itself were sent from India to Caribbeans to Africa. So that's when the real motion started. That's when immigration started. And it was not all good. Like, I want to show the pretty much okay and good part of it, but there was so much bloodshed, there was so much resistance. And the reason I use a lot of material, like a lot of sketches, paper torn, the way I'm collaging, is to capture all of that. A lot of times you want to hide away the things you don't want to see, and for me, pixelated or out of focus is kind of a brush mark I want to make, and I want to make sure people understand that all of this did come out with a value. There was a lot of people who were thrown off or destroyed in this process. Even though we are already only seeing good parts of it now with globalization, there was a lot which went all over around it. So I want to show those. I want to make sure I'm also capturing the bad parts, and some paintings are more focused, like the portrait of industrialization. That is very focused, the black part of the whole uh, colonization, and that has more of this pixelated dark images, paper torn paper scratches, in just order to emphasize. And then you have on the other end of that portrait of industrialization have the Gucci stamp. Gucci stamp for me symbolizes money, it symbolizes aristocracy. And to the other side of people in India who were suffering from colonization and dying because of famine, there were people sitting in Britain who were getting the luxury and the money out of the industrialization, running these industries, which were basically fed out of the blood, because people in India had to grow indigo, had to grow cotton in order to fuel these industries, and they couldn't get the food. They couldn't grow rice, they couldn't grow wheat. So all of this is very intentional, but it is to show the contrasting world we were living in at that point, and the contrasting world we still feel. Like, I feel that contrast today, living in US. It's not same as it would be for a white person or a man. So all of that needed to be shown with those like mark making. The most important thing is to make people understand when they look at my art, it is their identity, the people they meet, their identity, or my identity, anybody's identity who moved. For me, US is a land of immigrants. Nobody really here is from here. Maybe like indigenous people, but most of us are not from here. But that's not how we treat people when we meet. There is a clear definition of when you look different from a standard of how you should be. And it can be anything, right? Like, I don't want to get into how it should be, but I want people to understand that a person is, his identity or her identity is not the face, not the color. It's not what the physical appearance is, but so much more than that. I foresee I look Indian, but my favorite food is Italian. So until you meet me, until you try to remove these layers and understand me, you would never know who I am. I don't want people to make a judgment based on how I look, on what I like to eat, or what I want to become, or who I am, or where I came from. A lot of those things are true, but I just want viewers to uncover those layers, look at these nitty gritties, and understand how people are just the way they want to look at my pieces. Because I bet nobody can be in a room and just look at the images and go out. They have to go close, they have to find maybe one piece and treat it as a puzzle. Keep going back, keep finding more elements, and keep finding more depth to the painting I've created, just the way I want people to look at others.